fought the fight, breaking down the walls in the dead of night. I don't come for peace, I come for the storm. Fanboys melt quick when the truth gets warm. Saw content's high, I'm collecting those tears. Just got started, but I'm cutting through fears. I'm not here for brand deals, I'm not for sale. I expose your lies, rip off the veil.
There comes a point where you look at a company you once believed in, a company you once thought could actually shift the direction of this industry, and you realize they have completely abandoned everything that made people support them in the first place. But before we get into this, please hit the like button and the hype button as well. It really helps out small channels like mine to be able to stand up to greedy corporations and the toxic influencers. That's where I'm at with Xbox right now. I didn't arrive here overnight. This didn't come from some long-standing bias or a random dislike. This comes from watching a platform that once talked about putting players first collapse under its own decisions, one after another, until nothing is left except confusion and disappointment. Just 8 months ago, I was telling people that Xbox was actually worth considering again. I wasn't doing that lightly. I wasn't doing it because it was trendy. I was doing it because it felt like they were finally moving in a direction that respected their players. They had a service people enjoyed. They had hardware that made sense for the average household. They had messaging centered around value, accessibility, and convenience. It generally looked like a turnaround moment, but in less than a year, all of that goodwill has evaporated. Xbox has gone from being praised as the most consumer-friendly company in the console space to becoming the complete opposite, the biggest ripoff in modern gaming. This shift didn't happen randomly. It happened through a series of decisions that make no sense to anyone paying attention. Every time you think Xbox has reached the limit of what they're willing to do, they find a new floor. They've raised console prices once, then they raised them again. They also raised the Xbox Game Pass. Now we're hearing they're planning to raise them a third time, or at least rumored to. A brand that's already struggling to find relevance is deliberately making itself less accessible. It's the kind of decision that tells you they have completely lost sight of what players buy hardware in the first place. What makes this even more confusing is the timing. Xbox is not in the position of strength. They aren't dominating sales. They aren't leading in software. They aren't launching major first-party titles that define the generation. They are, by every metric, barely holding on to their position in the market. And when a company is already fighting to stay in the conversation, the last thing you would expect for them is to make it even harder for consumers to choose their platform. Yet here we are, watching them intentionally price themselves out of a reach. The reality is that Xbox consoles are barely selling right now. That's not an opinion, that's just the data. They are consistently behind their competitors. In some regions, they aren't even registering as meaningful competition anymore. And instead of addressing those concerns with innovation, better output, or improved services, they double down on the one thing that pushes people further away, raising the price of the entry. You can try to justify it with supply chain issues, you could try to blame RAM shortages or increased production costs. Those factors matter, but they don't explain the mindset behind these decisions, because other companies face the same challenges and still find a way to hold steady or create more value. Xbox, on the other hand, seems to believe the solution to weak hardware sales is to make the hardware more expensive. It's the definition of backwards thinking. What really confuses me is how disconnected these decisions feel from the reality of Xbox's current position. When Sony raises prices, at least there's a foundation of momentum and demand behind it. When Nintendo holds their ground on pricing, it's because they know their hardware sells regardless. Xbox doesn't have that luxury. They can't lean on nostalgia. They can't lean on a market dominance. They can't lean on recent first-party successors. They don't have any of those stabilizers in place, and yet they're behaving as if the brand is untouchable. I usually don't even spend much time talking about Xbox because there's so little to talk about. They made themselves irrelevant through years of inconsistent messaging and half-built strategies. And now with these constant price increases, they're pushing themselves even further out of the conversation. At this point, you have to wonder if Xbox is even trying to be part of the console market anymore. Are they actually planning for long-term hardware presence? Or are they slowly preparing to back away from it entirely? People want to support the Xbox. There is still a core group of players who grew up with Halo, with Gears, with the 360 era, where the platform felt alive and competitive. That audience has been patient. They've waited through the Xbox One disaster, they've waited through broken promises, they waited through delays, acquisitions, and setbacks, but that patience is wearing thin, because now it's not about mistakes, it's not about setbacks, it's about decisions, deliberate decisions, that show Xbox is prioritizing everything except the consumer. Right now, Xbox is behaving like a brand that has given up on winning the generation and is focused only on squeezing whatever it can from the people who remain. That's not strategy, that's resignation. And if they keep moving down this path, they won't just lose market share, they'll lose whatever identity they have left. When you raise prices on an already struggling product, you're not building confidence, you're signaling weakness. That's the problem Xbox refuses to confront. Instead of stepping back and asking why their hardware isn't selling, why their first-party output is inconsistent, or why their messaging has lost clarity, they're choosing the path of least effort, increase prices, cut deals behind the scenes, and hope the brand loyalty magically appears. That's not how you rebuild momentum. That's how you accelerate decline. What frustrates me the most is how easily this could have gone in a different direction. When this generation began, Xbox had the opportunity to redefine itself. They had a subscription service people generally praised. They had a console that was powerful and competitively priced. They had acquisitions that were supposed to finally bring a steady flow of high-quality first-party games. Everything was set up for them to rise again, but instead of capitalizing on that, they moved in the opposite direction. They pushed cloud first, they spread their games on every platform, they told people that hardware didn't matter, that Xbox was really an ecosystem, not a console, and while that sounds good for the marketing standpoint, it's completely undermined the reason to buy their hardware. If you could play Xbox games on your PC, your phone, your tablet, and rival platforms, then why buy the console, especially when it's this overpriced? That message didn't expand their audience, it diluted their brand. Now with these price hikes, that delusion is turning into erosion. Even the most loyal Xbox owners are questioning why they should bother sticking around. You can't keep telling people your hardware doesn't matter and then expect them to pay more for it. You can't de-emphasize the console and then act confused when nobody wants to buy it. And you absolutely cannot raise prices on a platform that people already see as a secondary to your competitors. At this point, Microsoft needs to confront the reality that their decisions over the past decade have put them in this position. They've tried to renovate Xbox so many times that the brand no longer has a clear identity, and raising prices only adds another layer of uncertainty. If you're already losing trust, losing relevance, and losing market share, increasing the cost of entry is the worst possible move you could make. This is why people say Xbox is a lost cause right now. Not because the hardware is bad, not because the potential isn't there, but because the people running the division are so out of touch with the expectations of the audience they're trying to reach. They're disconnected from the reality of the market. They're reacting instead of planning, and they're prioritizing everything except the one thing that truly matters: consumer confidence. Xbox has the resources to fix this, but resources don't matter when leadership can't see the problem clearly. You can spend billions acquiring publishers, you can build the biggest cloud infrastructure in the world, you can expand Game Pass, push Windows integration, and talk endlessly about the future. None of that matters if people no longer believe in the brand today. Trust doesn't return automatically, it has to be earned. The longer Xbox treats its consumers like an afterthought, the harder it becomes to regain that trust. Because while Xbox drifts, the competition continue moving forward. Sony continues to stabilize their business, Nintendo continues to dominate with accessible hardware and first-party titles that never stop selling, and now Valve is entering the space with hardware that has genuine potential. Everyone else is evolving while Xbox is raising prices and shrinking its audience. You can only run on potential for so long. You can only make excuses for so long. At some point, you need results, you need direction. You need leadership that understands that in order to keep people invested, you have to give them a reason to stay. Right now, Xbox is doing the opposite. They're giving people reasons to walk away. It's disappointing to see this, but Xbox's situation is no longer surprising, it's predictable. A company that once talked about being pro-consumer has now become the example of how quickly a brand can collapse when it loses touch with the people who supported it. I'm not rooting for their downfall, I'm pointing out the reality they've created for themselves. And unless they find a way to reverse this course, they're going to keep fading into irrelevance. This isn't anger, this is disappointment, because Xbox could have been something great this generation. They had all the pieces, they had the momentum, they had the goodwill, and they let it slip through their hands. If Xbox wants to remain a real competitor next generation, they need to stop running from the truth. The decisions being made right now are not sustainable. You cannot lose relevance and raise prices at the same time. You cannot alienate your base and expect loyalty. You cannot abandon your hardware identity and expect people to follow you anywhere you go. Right now, Xbox isn't part of the conversation because they removed themselves from it. And until they start acting like a brand that cares about its players instead of its margins, that's exactly where they'll stay.
And that's it for the video. If you truly enjoyed it, do me a favor and hit the like button, hit the hype button, share it around, and make sure you're subscribed. I post a long video every day, and I also go live Monday morning at 5 a.m. Pacific time, where I react to the saltiest fanboys around. And also, make sure you subscribe, because I'm really trying to hit 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I really need your help. If you really want to support the channel, consider becoming a member. It's only $1 a month. You'll get special badges, custom emotes, and of course your name shouted at the end of every video. And once that list gets too long, don't worry, I will turn it into a full-on credit roll so everybody gets their chance to shine. Also, don't forget to check out the merch if you want to rep the Vigilante Fire. And as always, until next time guys, stay vigilant.
And now it's time to get into the members of the channels. We got Koros Objective, Maximilian Pegasus 88, Mad Fox 94, Dr. Downvote, Oh No It's Justin, Brian Payne, Andy Ritz, C-Stars Piplup, Jay Wesby 65, Geezer Noob, Dustin 360, That PlayStation Gamer, Stephen Rammy, Matthew Buckley, Johnny Bones Jones, The One and Only Group, Fima Goku, Kasaria, Vetful Zexel, General Raihahuka, CM, Eden Force, Pokeplay, Starlight Mirror, Crystal Woe, Phoenix Freestyle, The More Incredible Grimlock, Ninja Pat 15, T-Man the Cool, Kyria Lunar, Ronan Reef 90, Shadow Dragons, Brandon Alex, Mr. Crab and Arts, Back Edge, Nightfall Hero Academy, Vega Bar GTF, Switch Addiction, and QE Kato. Thank you so much for becoming part of the crew.
You can cry in the comments, but you won't survive. Like and subscribe if you feel that vibe. We're heartless.